Welcome for those who are here. It's great to see. I think everybody attended at least one of the webinars. So this is the final session of our series exploring how artificial intelligence shapes our world. This time we will be exploring some of the big ethical and society questions surrounding artificial intelligence. I believe the session will bring together insights from the entire series. Is a great opportunity to reflect on where we go next in our relationship with technology. So to discuss this, we are very pleased to welcome back Dr. Elizabeth Milovidov, who has guided us through each of the sessions in the series. Elizabeth, thank you once again for being with us and for sharing your time and expertise with us in a very approachable way. And the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Evine. Gosh, it's going to be kind of sad not to see you anymore. We're going to have to come up with another series because I'm so used to every couple of months doing something.
Yeah, we
But
should, we should, we definitely should.
but I think what is really wonderful about Religions for Peace UK and just this whole series of five is really preparing families and parents and caregivers and aunts and uncles and grandparents just about the digital age, about what's happening with technology. So I really appreciate all of you who have stayed with us, time and time again, and those of you who are watching the videos, because really I think that's what it's all about is creating awareness, just talking about these things, having these conversations, so that way people know what's out there. So, as Evine said, I am going to do just a bit of a review. Very, very small, because I think that so much of what we talked about was important. We are going to be talking about the ethical and societal implications of AI. But before we do, I thought that it was kind of important that we just remember, where we came from, everything that we've looked at in this series. So I'm just going to quickly walk us through what we did. So this is where we started, right? With our introduction to artificial intelligence. And we really dove into the basics of AI. And we looked a bit at the history, the types, and I think what was really interesting is that because this was when we first got started, I think people were a little intimidated. This is way back in April. And so here, we were looking at exactly what is artificial intelligence. And the answers that we came up with at that time was how it is a multidisciplinary field. And I think we need to keep that in mind today as we're talking about ethics and societal implications. It is a field that aims to create systems that are capable of performing tasks that typically require human intelligence. That's why the ethical part is so important. And so this whole idea AI involves creating algorithms or models that can analyze data. Do you remember these? Analyze data, identify patterns, and make decisions on that analysis. So those were some of the core concepts when we were talking about AI. And I think it's again important to emphasize that it is this capability of a machine, ethics, a machine to imitate intelligent human behavior. And so this includes things like learning and reasoning and problem solving. Do we want AI to be problem solving everything for us? And it's also perception and language understanding. But all of these things are critical for the AI development, which means what goes in is what's coming out. Again, talking about the ethics of that. And understanding those core concepts are still the key of understanding the potential impact of AI in various fields, and again, of course, on society and in ethics. We also briefly talked about the history and the evolution of AI and how it began in the 20th century with early research in computing, and that there were some significant milestones, right, in the development of the Turing test, the advent of machine learning, and breakthroughs in neural networks, all of that which led us to our present day innovations in AI technology. So that was everything that we saw in webinar one. I know, just a quick summary. And then what did we do after that? After we saw our introduction, we then looked at how did we explore how AI was integrated into our personal lives. In a nutshell, how do we use artificial intelligence? So here we were looking at some of the definitions, and I know I always enjoyed this session because we had our famous quiz that was just so much fun. And but basically we were looking at narrow AI versus general AI. And so narrow AI was this idea of weak, and it's things like voice recognition or image classification. And general AI was really strong, and that was kinds of things like being able to understand and reason across a range of skills. So we did a bunch of tests of looking to see if, if chatbots were AI, if cybersecurity was AI, if robotics, if that was AI. And I think for the most part, the class did pretty well on the quiz. Again, the fundamental part of that whole session was understanding how AI is incorporated into our daily lives. And we felt that it was crucial just so that it could lead up to this point as well, where we're talking about the ethical implications. If we are using artificial intelligence for so many things, for critical thinking, for analysis, for perception, for reasoning, when does that human voice come back in? So that's a little bit of something that we'll discuss today. Whipping right along. See, I'm taking you through the journey. You probably don't even remember doing all of this, but we did. We did a lot. We then looked at the impact of artificial intelligence behind the algorithm. So we were really looking at some of those risks and the tactics, and we discussed things like manipulation and algorithms, and I even showed some deep fakes, and it was, again, kind of the scary side of what can happen, again, without ethics and society jumping in to say, this is not what we want. So more specifically, we looked at manipulation. We looked at some definitions. We looked at how it involves controlling, manipulation involves controlling or influencing others in a clever or unscrupulous way. And we saw how this can happen through AI, which is taking advantage of individual biases and emotions. It's very interesting as well because a lot of what we do when we're using artificial intelligence is we're using prompt engineering, which is how we're using certain words to tease out a certain answer, if you remember from our other webinars. And what is so interesting is I was talking with my son about prompt engineering, and for him, he calls it psychological manipulation. That's what prompt engineering is for him. It's a way to, use psychology and figure out the best ways to influence others. So it's I don't know if there's a gray line in there somewhere. Actually, I do know. I think there is a gray line in there, and we have to be a little careful of how we're talking about this type of manipulation. Um, I think here the impact of understanding why artificial intelligence is so much more powerful is because we just realize that the data, the sheer amounts and volumes of data that can be analyzed in just a fraction of a time, right? And I think we all talk about how it's supposed to increase our productivity, enhance decision making efficiency. It's true, it can do all of these things. And so that is why it's so powerful. It can also give you a personalized experience, right? And again, this is by manipulating the data. And it's funny because this word manipulation has such a negative connotation, but manipulation is really using the words with your hands. It's like forming it, moving things around. And so manipulating things according to our individual preferences and behaviors. And then lastly, why did we also say that AI is just so powerful? It's because it has this capacity, this scalable manipulation, which is the scalable capabilities of AI, and it allows it to target numerous people, numerous individuals simultaneously. So you can do this in marketing, engagement strategies, marketing strategies, and engagement strategies. So it's a way to just kind of mass produce and get a lot of information and a lot of data out there. So then we, again, talking about some of the impacts, and I will say what can go wrong, is that we were looking at this sort of false content creation. We were looking at this how this combination of misinformation and AI technology, how it can create, a potent tool for shaping public perception, for shaping public behavior. And this was very interesting again, as we're talking about ethics and societal implications. How does AI facilitate the spread of false information? Well, it does it in three ways, right? Realistic. The content is just so realistic, and we're talking whether we're talking text, messages, videos, images, right? It's so closely resembles the authentic content that it is very, very hard to understand what is false and what is not false. You can have misleading information. So the ability of generative AI to create really credible content, and you can spread misinformation. We've seen this already in our day-to-day global affairs and politics, and then it becomes very difficult for the user to be able to distinguish between fact and fiction, because generative AI, it just blurs those lines. And so it's very difficult to authenticate the veracity of the content. And in fact, it's even hard to know where to go to sort of fact check those sources. How do you fact check if a video is real or not? How do you fact check if an image is real or not? Well, on some of these platforms, you can use things like Google reverse engineering to look at photos to find out where the photo came from, if that is the true area. But again, it's not simple, and you really have to kind of be thinking of these things all the time. So we then did critical thinking, right? And critical thinking, for me, this is in my opinion, that I won't say it was my favorite webinar, but it's one of the most important topics that we can talk about, because this whole idea of critical thinking, we need this as parents, as caregivers, as users. You need to be asking these questions, the who, what, where, when, why, all the time. Whether you're seeing something in your feed, whether you're getting ready to make a purchase for some new technology, we really have to get in there and verify this information. And for me, that is probably the biggest disservice that we're seeing with artificial intelligence, is that because it is enhancing our productivity and it's making things so fast, and so nice, let's face it, so nice that we're just saying, oh, that's good enough. I think I used the example last time with my husband, who's not a native English speaker, and so sometimes he'll use generative AI to write a letter or to write an email, or perhaps even help with a Excel document. And he'll look at the letter and he'll say, "Well, this is great. This is perfect English. This looks so good." And I'll look at it and say, yeah, well, kind of, not really. There's some things missing, and I think that is that critical thinking aspect, again, that we're missing. And I do the same thing when I'm writing in French, because let's face it, it's become so much easier to write in other languages. You no longer have to use Google Translate. You can just, go into Chat GPT and write exactly what you want to say in English. And like I say, I see Cindy, I see you nodding your head. You can even record it, right? You can even say what you want and say and translate this to French, to German, to Italian. At the end of the day, you kind of have no idea. So it's really, again, this idea of critical thinking, of verifying the information, of having someone else double check for you. So here we really were talking about, what is AI and why should we even care? And this is when we were going really fundamentally into this whole critical thinking idea to establish that we're thinking of AI not as like a robot from a science fiction movie, but as a system, as a computer system that's designed to learn from data and to make decisions. And why should we care? Because it's already integrated into our daily routines. I don't know about you, but I can't tell you the number of times I'm using generative AI, whether it's Chat GPT, whether it's Google Gemini, Perplexity, and then if you go into things like, Canva and you're making a PowerPoint, up pops their AI. Or if you're working on Microsoft and you're working on a PowerPoint, up pops Copilot saying, "Do you want some help with this design?" So it is everywhere. Um, and this can also reflect the biases and intention of the creators. So really, again, our role is to teach our children, it is to teach other users, it is to teach your spouses, to question the why behind what they see online. So all of this is, this idea of reaching us to this new digital literacy, right? And how the conversations that we have with our kids and with other users, how it has to evolve, and it's no longer just about who they're talking to, but it's what they're seeing, what they're hearing, how they're feeling about these things, the empathy involved, the emotions that are coming up, because the challenge is that AI, it can create content that looks and sounds and feels completely authentic. And so we have to teach a new set of skills to navigate that reality. And that is what digital literacy is about. All of this, which brings us to our topic today in webinar 5, which is the ethical and societal implications of all of those things that we've covered in the past 4 webinars. So I hope that gave you a nice little review so you're ready to go. And of course, we're still feeling positive about this, right? We're not scared, but we're feeling positive. So here, the idea is that there is this huge promise, right? That we're going to AI is just, so transformative. It's transformed, how we live, how we work, how we communicate. You can diagnose disease. You can create art. I can rap right now. I can create a song. I can do really literally anything. I can even ask ChatGPT to help me create a song that sounds like, I don't know, something that Bugs Bunny would sing if he were talking to Michael Jackson, right? I mean, this is how wild you can do it with technology. And then you can even ask it to generate a video, right? This is, I don't know how many of you even know about Sora. Sora is OpenAI's little new thing like TikTok, and that is what it's doing. It's creating TikTok-like videos that are completely made up, right? So it's just like, wow, this is amazing. It's transformative, but with every single one of these leaps, we are facing some ethical questions. And the paradox is clear. AI's potential, it's boundless, and so are its unintended consequences. And I think that I wrote there on the screen the paradox: unprecedented innovation versus unpredictable consequences. We just don't know. And so I have this quote here: just because we can, it doesn't always mean we should. And I think that is something, even though I'm doing this call from Silicon Valley, this is where a lot of that energy has come from. And it's just because we can, it doesn't always mean we should. And the challenge there is to innovate responsibly, to go ahead and keep having these transformative technologies, but to do it responsibly, safely, civilly, in a democratic fashion, etc. I do hope that we will get there. And so we know that AI is runs on data, right? It's thriving on all of this information. So every photo, every search, every location pin, all of these things, it just becomes part of the training fuel. For me, this is a little problematic because the more data that we collect, the more vulnerable we become. I know sometimes in speaking with younger users, they say things like, "Well, my data is out there anyway. They can have it if they want it. It doesn't really matter. They have everything anyway." And that's kind of tough to hear because I still think that we can kind of place some limits on this data dilemma about how much do we give away. And yes, I understand that there are issues like Facial recognition, right? We love having facial recognition to open up our smartphone. But then what about when it's used for surveillance? Then what are we thinking? What about for biometric tracking? What about every time you go through the airport, right? The airport is a different place because and this is me remembering from a criminal law course 30 years ago. But if I remember correctly, when we go into an airport, we are giving them permission to do all of those things, to track us, to look at us, because we are going into that airport, into that space, which is why we go through metal detectors and we go through the biometric scans, and that's the price that we pay if we want to fly, which I find really interesting. And it seems to be that might be what we're also saying now with generative AI, is that that's the price we pay if we want to play, if we want to use these things. So even when we're talking about smart cities and our health apps, the number of young women that I see and hear who are a little bit concerned about putting personal information about their health into apps. Where is that data going? How is it being used? What's it training for? These are real, real considerations, and these are real concerns. And I think it's great that we do have people who work privacy and ethics and data, because it's very, very needed. We have that as well, not just for artificial intelligence, but we have that for most technology. Something that I work with a lot is children's privacy, family privacy, because how much are you able to want to use technology or be on a platform, but you still want that information to stay only on that platform and not be shared out with third-party users, et cetera. So that kind of leads us to a bunch of ethical questions, right? About all of this stuff. Who even owns our data, right? And when you sit there and you think about it, and we're churning out so much, who owns it? Do you still own it when you freely give away this information? And when you're giving it away, can you truly consent? I know for myself, and I'm sure that some of you as well, that anytime you're going on an app or a platform or a website and it says accept cookies, reject cookies, you know how fast it is just to click accept, and you just keep on going. I've done it too. I still do it. Because sometimes when you hit reject cookies, or you don't consent, what happens? You lose access to that website, that platform, to that technology, and nobody wants that. We all want our stuff, our tech stuff. So we all have this tendency to just kind of accept or to consent, but can you truly consent? I don't think so. I really don't. And I think we're going to start seeing more about that in the future. And I think we also have to realize too that many of these algorithms, they reinforce existing biases. I think it would be so interesting, and I haven't done this exercise, to look at algorithmic biases around the world. So for example, if we had a user in China, in Russia, I know we have somebody in South Africa, in India, in France, and even in California versus New York versus London, I think it would be really, really interesting to see that algorithmic bias and what they are being served up as opposed to what we see, here and there. And the reason why I say this is because we do know that these algorithms, they reinforce existing bias, because that data is already biased, and so it's going to equal biased outcomes, right? And let me give you an example of how I know part of this is because when I was a law professor in Paris, I had all of my different students, and I had them take out their phones and do just a simple Google search. And I had them write who is Macron, and Macron is the French president. And had them, who is Macron? And depending on where they had been using their Google search and what countries, the results were different. How can the results be different, right? And, it's just, how can they be different? It's the same person. It should be standard, right? So this is how I know that algorithmic bias, that it still exists. It does happen. So already when we're talking about ethical AI it has to start with ethical data. It has to start with data that is diverse, because otherwise we're going to have a world that does not look like us on the call, that does not sound like us, because we're all from different places, and it will just be, Silicon Valley people that are being represented and not the rest of the world. So we need that diversity, we need that transparency, and we need this data to be responsibly managed. So one of the things I wanted to make sure that I talked about, because I knew that I would be scaring you all because you're thinking, oh my gosh, the ethical considerations, is to make sure I gave you some strategies, right? Because I think that with all of these things, as we're talking about technology, artificial intelligence, of course, there are strategies, there are things that we can do to make sure that we optimize the benefits and that we reduce the risks. So, how can we reduce some of the privacy risks that we see? Well, believe it or not, there are things called privacy by design principles. So, what does that mean? Privacy by design means that whenever somebody is designing a product, an app, a new sort of technological feature, that they start as they design it, they start and they're thinking privacy by design. Privacy is already baked in from the very beginning. It is built into the system from the start. So you have privacy by design, safety by design, well-being by design. So again, I think I might have used this example before, but I like it, so I'm going to use it again. Think about it this way: if we were making a cake, and we were trying to make our cake, and let's say we wanted to say nutritional by design, right? So as we make that cake, we're going to try to find the healthiest organic ingredients to go in it, so that way it is nutritional by design. We didn't just take, the previous recipe that we used, or pull down a box from the shelf and just add eggs and milk, although no shame, because I love those cakes because you can eat the batter really quickly. But we went and looked up all the different ingredients. Perhaps we even went to a farmer's market and bought something special. That is baking things in from the beginning. That is building systems intentionally and with design. That is privacy by design. And when we use those principles as we build out AI, we are ensuring that we will have the best results. So that's one way to reduce the risk. Another way is to strengthen data protection laws. You have all heard about GDPR, which, if I'm not mistaken, came out, I want to say May 25th, 2022, but I could be mistaken in the year. But the whole idea is that there are just these general rules for data protection, because the European government, European Union, recognized that we needed to protect data, and this had a worldwide consequences. And so now we see many sort of data protection laws around the world, and we even have an Artificial Intelligence Act. Look at that, people! They're thinking about us in the future, and so we have these stronger data laws, and they can help. I do think it's kind of wonderful that a lot of these things started in Europe. That's just me, just saying what I think. I also think that promoting data minimization, right? So we don't need to have tons and tons of data out there, and we can also anonymize some of the data, right? You don't need to know everything about everyone in order to still understand some of the results and some of the final lessons learned. And something else that I've talked about again and again is this sort of digital literacy, this idea of knowing how our data moves. How can we control it? This is the same whether we're talking about, using your smartphone, a tablet, a computer. Digital literacy is just huge, and it is so crucial and important. This is the way that we empower individuals, our children, everyone, how to manage their own data rights, how to manage their own responsibilities. So something that you're probably a little bit worried about is job displacement, right? Everybody's saying, "Oh my gosh, the robots are here." And yeah, I chose an image that's probably not very kind of me, but sparking your fear. But I always like to have images that are, you know, just kind of exciting. So, this came from an article when it was talking about how AI automation was threatening traditional employment. So yes, yes, yes. AI is reshaping the workforce. But before you start to panic, Think about all the years ago when people said, "Oh my gosh, we're going to have cash registers in the store, and it's going to just there won't be any more people in the store." Come on. Okay, so there's like a few over there, a few machines, self-service if you want to take your 10 items, but nobody wants to sit there and do a whole basket full of items, right? It's just faster to have some real help, not a robot. Although they might be having robots soon. And I don't know about any of you, but I think it was in the UK where I went into, I think it's an Amazon store where it's you walk in and then you can just walk out and it's like all scanned. And I'm like, that is, sorry, Cindy, I think it's so cool. It's also super crazy. I think it's really cool. But yeah, the workers in that store might be a little different, but you know what? As we say, we do know that some of these routine tasks are they're being automated across the sectors, right? From manufacturing to education. I mean, I've seen it myself as a law professor. I remember, having to do the grading and doing my PowerPoints and on all kinds of things like this. And you can really automate a lot of these things now. Automate your exams, especially if you're using multiple choice, to really just everything just trickles along, right? Or if you do surveys using a Google form, then you can automatically have it populate into a Google Sheet. I mean, there are just really ways to be way more productive where AI can boost our efficiency. So what do we know though? We know that it threatens livelihoods, people that are in skilled or repetitive roles. I think that is the tricky part. And it's like, how do we balance that? How do we balance efficiency with equity? How do we possibly upskill these people and train them to help them go from here to there? And again, think back to when in the 50s, I think it was, when it was like we would have typing pools, right? You would just have all of the women sitting in a room typing. It was mostly women, and then we had computers, and I do remember having a typewriter when I was a kid. So I'm dating myself, but I remember thinking it was so cool to have my little typewriter. And if you made a mistake, you had to try to take the ribbon and white it out and do all these crazy things. We don't have that anymore. But am I freaking out about typewriters? No, it's just like we are evolving and upskilling. So just remember that AI doesn't always eliminate jobs, it changes them. And we are human beings. We excel at empathy, creativity, complex decision making. These are things that, right now it's a little bit difficult. Even they say that AI can do it, it can't do it all. And so our goal, it isn't to compete with machines, but it's to complement them. It's to work with AI, human AI collaboration, not replacement. It's just the same way we work with our computer. It's a tool. It is a tool, and we're going to figure out how to work with it. How are we going to help everyone who is now freaking out saying, my job, my job? Well, again, this national reskilling, and we are so lucky because with AI, there are so many programs and plans that you can just, upskill. And I don't know about you, but for me with languages, I love Duolingo. And there's a chat bot there that I can talk to. I mean, so there are a lot of ways that AI can help us reskill, upskill, get better at something that we never thought that we could do before. And there are always lifelong learning programs, right? So governments and companies can kind of mitigate some of this disruption by using some of these programs, by having some retraining initiatives, having inclusive education policies that are not just for the young people, but for all age groups, all socioeconomic areas, because quite frankly, we're going to need it. I think we also need to teach adaptability and again, that critical thinking for sure. And we need emotional intelligence because we have to ensure that we as humans that we stay relevant and that we are still remain resilient in this AI world. Policies for inclusive technological transition, that is just this idea that, we know this is where we're going, but we have to be inclusive of all people, of all workers. This cannot just be a new space where it's only the super rich who have access to these super machines of AI and everybody else is, just suffering. It reminds me of that movie, I think it was called Bullet Train, where the rich people are in the very Pierce Spear Snow Train. Oh, I can't remember. It's with Matt Damon, but all the super rich people are in the front, and it's like luxury and everybody else is in the back and it's like they're all dirty with the coal and everything. And so this is not what we want our world to look like. So we're going to have to work at it. Something that I know that a lot of people want to talk about is this sort of carbon cost, right? Because we really have to think about what we're doing to the environment, right? We're kind of messing it up here, people. Let's just call it as we see it. We're kind of messing it up. So these training these large AI models, I mean, it is using so much energy. It's just amazing. And we even have statistics that say that when we are training one AI model, the carbon dioxide output is 5 cars over their lifetime. 5 cars over their lifetime. That's a lot, right? And so when we start adding all that waste and we start adding that waste to the rapid hardware turnover, because let's face it, we're just turning this stuff out. We're cranking out junk, and then everything becomes obsolete. And then you have to get the newest model and the latest model. For sure, we have something that's called a hidden environmental footprint. And because we don't see it, we're not thinking about it. It's going to have, in my opinion, some of the same sort of catastrophic consequences that we see with global climate, with global warming. The fact that, just because we didn't see it, we thought that it wasn't happening, and now it's like, oh boy, why are there floods? Is it sunshine in the middle of, I don't know, someplace where it's usually snowing? We're seeing that these temperature shifts. And so the question then is for us not to panic, but as we're looking at this carbon cost of AI, the question is, can we actually make artificial intelligence greener? Can we find ways to, reduce that hidden environmental footprint? Already, it shouldn't be hidden. I think if we all know about it, if we're all talking about it, if you've seen on the news some of these data centers that, taking up just fields and fields of territory and areas and places, and then what's happening to the water, what's happening to the air, to the people. I mean, I think we need to have a lot more awareness about that because it's not just because we're putting them in places that are out of sight, out of mind, that we are not seriously causing damage, because we are. So I think we all need to be a little bit more vocal about these things. And as I said, can we use AI and make it green? Yep. Yes. 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 We can. We can. We can. We can. We can use AI for environmental good. We can use AI to help us figure some of these things out, right? So we can use it to help us fight climate change. We can use it to help us optimize energy grids and forecast some of that extreme weather. I mean, for my goodness, how is it possible in this day and age that we have such extreme weather in one place or another, and yet people are not able to, protect their crops in time, or get covers out on things, and then, everything is just destroyed. And we're like, well, how come there wasn't a weather warning sign beforehand? So I think that we really can use AI to help boost us in these areas, and that will help reduce some of the waste. And I think it's important to remember that AI it's not really the villain, right? And it's the same thing I say with all technology. It's not that technology is villain or evil, but it's how we use it, right? And that's us as humans, how we use it, that will establish whether it is going to be helpful or harmful. So again, I wanted to leave you with a quote there, that the same technology that contributes to the problem can also be part of the solution. See, there's always hope, always hope. And now again for some strategies. So strategies, of course, we're going to reduce the environmental risk. So we're going to encourage green AI research. That's right. That kind of stuff exists. We have all sorts of new areas of research. When you think that AI research was not even a topic, years ago, and now here we have AI research. We have AI specialists. We have AI privacy experts. I am not yet a family AI expert, but I should be. I should be working on that. But we need to encourage some green AI research, right? We need to look and try to find energy efficient models, lower power chips, and these things they're possible. They are out there. We are smart people. people. We can figure these things out. We can also employ AI to help us. Renewable energy in some of those data centers. My goodness, there has to be a way to really harness the environment to help us reduce the energy and the footprints. Um, One way to understand what's happening with those footprints, the environmental footprints, is to have more transparent reporting, right? We need to know. And I think that's something else. I think if we all knew about climate change, it's similar to the people in the 50s who smoked cigarettes. They didn't really know. I mean, doctors were smoking cigarettes. You see ads, everybody's smoking cigarettes. It looks glamorous on TV, all the movie stars. And it's just like, unless people know, unless we're being transparent and saying, this is not good for you, then we're not going to get anywhere. And I think we have to be transparent on our carbon footprints. We have to be transparent on our AI projects, so that way we can ensure that innovation does not come at the expense of the planet. Because let's face it, that's what we're talking about. Societal and human implications, right? So AI decisions that they can, of course, have life-changing impacts, right? And again, we've talked about from using them in medical diagnoses. What happens when it's a misdiagnosis, right? What happens when it's your credit score and it makes a mistake? I mean, these are kind of heavy deals, right? So who's responsible when AI makes a problem? Is it, who's accountable? Is it the developer? Is it the user? You shouldn't have put that information in there. Is it the algorithm itself? At the moment, I think there's a lot of finger pointing and things, and we need to kind of close this accountability gap, so that way we can, really make sure that we have trust in our AI systems. I really wholeheartedly know that we will get there because we are putting in regulation. We are looking around. Technology companies are leaning in, governments are leaning in, individuals are leaning in, because we know that AI, it shapes how we see and how we feel, that deepfakes can blur the truth, that algorithms can influence elections, that chatbots can mimic empathy. And so that danger for society and for us as humans is this emotional manipulation. And when AI knows that it can move us, it can also, nudge us. And so we have to preserve some of this human autonomy and critical thinking. I will never stop saying critical thinking. So again, reducing those risks, you've got to give you some strategies, right? So we are already seeing things like this. It's mandatory AI ethic boards. So if you're hearing about anything, just say, oh, do you have an AI ethics board? Do you have somebody who works in ethics in your company or for the government? More transparency tools to understand what is happening. An explainability dashboard. This is something that we should see across all technology, which is that it shows how you use it, how you're using technology. What is it's just a way for you to understand every single system, every single thing that you're toggling, what it means and why. We definitely have to strengthen the regulation of deep fakes and AI generated misinformation. That one's going to be a tough one because all of that user generated content is just it's exploding, and people feel like they have the right and the freedom to create whatever they want. And it's like, well, yes, but no. So I think we need to have more AI literacy so we can recognize those questions and we can demand fairness. Almost to the end, we also have this idea of global governance where we are seeing that governments are pulling together, right? So we have, like I already mentioned, the EU AI Act. There are recommendations from the OECD, from UNESCO. I know the UK government, most governments are working on something nationally. And the challenge, though, is, balancing this innovation with human rights. And we're going to have to sort of avoid this digital colonialism, right? Where it's just, those who have it are the ones who are, taking it from other countries, taking their data and using it. But we really want to have fair AI for all nations. And of course, how can we do that? You at your individual level, it is by staying informed, asking those questions, advocating all the time for transparency. We have a few more minutes left, but I wanted to leave you with, again, a slide. With great power comes great responsibility. You've all heard of this, and everybody says, oh, yeah, it was Uncle Ben from Spider-Man. Was it? Or was it Voltaire? Was it? I'm just going to leave you to think about that. But with great power comes great responsibility, and we do all have great power. You just don't realize it. Evine, that is it for me. If there are any questions, let's open it up. Well, first, let me ask a question. I
No,
hope you're not afraid. You're not afraid, right? Tell me that. Everybody, you feel good, right? Good. I'm seeing nods. Not, people are nodding their heads. That's right. They're not afraid. They're feeling good. Do you feel like you can handle this?
Not sure. But I think I'll speak first. Um, because AI is a new tool, and as new tools, people who have a better grasp of the technology are in the driving seat. And because we are living in the world that we're living in, they are going to use that tool to make money. And when
Yes.
we make money, there is, in our culture, we call it brutal growth. That when there is no regulation, nothing, you're just
Yes.
growing wildly.
Yeah.
Um, and I think we're still in that growing wildly period where almost regulation is a it's a bad word. So
Yeah.
how do we control ourselves to pull back to allow the
Mm.
ethics and the care and the sensitivity
Yes.
that this tool is serving? I think that's the next step we have to advocate.
I agree with you, Steve. It really is that next step. But I am also hopeful because we seem that we to have learned our lessons before, right? With the tech booms and the pushes and all of that unregulated tech stuff that was just being churned out. I think that's why we're seeing more regulation, the AI Act and things like that, because that's really fast. When you think about it, ChatGPT just came out, what, in December 2022,
You,
2023, I think. This is fast to get laws on the board, especially when you compare it to the first automobile that was what in the 1920s, and when we had seatbelt regulation, which was at least 40 years after, 40, 50 years after. So I think I am hopeful, but I 100% agree with you as far as um, those who have those early adopters are the ones who get the biggest benefits. And maybe it means that we need to get in there and adopt too, so that way we can ensure that equity and fairness that is so necessary. Yeah, but thank you. I appreciate those insights. It's very true. Marilyn?
Hi, everybody again. Thank you for this webinar. I mean, the whole series, it's been very insightful, very informing and enlightening as well. So I truly appreciate it. I've learned a lot. Yes, it's less scary for me now, but I don't know if I'm able to manage it. Still finding my way. I'm still on neutral, whether I don't know whether I like it or don't like it, still playing around. I find it useful in my daily life in terms of ChatGPT and, what things it needs to help me with. But what I really wanted to share was I went to the G20 Interfaith Conference, and it was held in South Africa and Cape Town this year, and it was in August.
Mm.
And there were three sessions on AI. So I joined all three of them because I
Ah,
was like, very interested
yeah.
what's happening in this space. And they were like speakers from around the world. I mean, even like New York and all these developers, and they were like really interesting conversations. So I brought up my concerns about the whole thing about job replacements, which you covered as
Mm.
well.
What
And
did they say?
well, they didn't have any much answers. They were just like, wow, so you're one of those people who've been affected by AI in terms of your job and your career in architecture. And then one of the guys came afterwards and he said, maybe you need to reinvent yourself and see how you can use it as a tool to further enhance your career than it actually like being a negative thing. So like relook it and reinvent yourself, which I was like, okay, it's hard, but yeah, okay, it's a different world, it's a changing world. I'll just have to see how to navigate the space again. Um,
Yeah, it is. But Marilyn, I don't think that you're alone in that, because it's the same thing for lawyers and for doctors. I mean, look at I did the eye surgery 20 years ago, and now they have robots doing it. You don't even need a surgeon to do it. So, it's affecting lots and lots of careers, and those careers where we studied for years. So you have to think
yes.
about that. too. Yeah.
And that was one of the things I brought up. I was like, I paid 40,000 rand to study each year, and now you're telling me I'm being replaced by AI. This is not fair.
But
So anyway.
just realize that AI is incredibly intelligent, Marilyn. So are you.
Yeah, true. And I did do a podcast on AI, which I will release soon as well, which
Oh,
you'll find
excellent.
interesting. It's with another architectural friend, and we covered a lot about it. And he's given me a different insight about it from the developer point of view, because he's developing like the software in architecture. So I'll share that with you soon.
Oh,
I'm going to
please
release it
do.
soon.
That's really interesting. And I think that's something that we should also continue, Evine, and Cindy, is to continue sharing these resources of seeing, how we can use AI positively, and in our careers, in our fields, because I think that is truly, truly inspiring. So I'm gonna send my things to projects1 at rfpuk.org. And I invite everybody else to do the same. Evine's going to be like an avalanche of fun things to look at.
That is great. We want all the resources, and we welcome all the questions and suggestions that you have. Thank you, Elizabeth, for
Not a
all those
problem. I'm
great
going to go to YouTube
insights.
right now and start sharing.
Yes, please do.
I will. I
And
will.
for participants, and I am positive that everybody learned something new or got some new insight. And I think the opportunity to discuss and hear from an expert is always very enriching. So I hope to see you again. And please spread the knowledge that you have, discuss with among your network about the topics, and thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Also, me to thank Dr. Elizabeth for a very meaningful first step for us. This definitely needs to go on as we go deeper into an environment that we don't yet know, and we have to be courageous to
Yes,
believe
we
that
do. We
good
do.
can come, and then
Good.
if there are something that is not right, that we also have the courage to fix it, so that the tool becomes a good tool, and that
I
it
agree with you, Cindy. I
contributes to
agree.
everything. So thank
Oh,
you, Dr. Elizabeth from
well, thank you
RFP
all. Thank you
UK.
for
Yeah.
being there and making it so much so easy.